A. All right, so I was looking into cut and unused content for Xenoblade 2, and there's actually a lot of interesting stuff here, and this isn't even half of it. There's so much, but I wanted to go over a lot of the unused graphics and stuff like that, because there is a lot of interesting stuff in here. And to start, we have early art icons we see here. The ones in the red, obviously this is a Pyra's sword in the middle, but the one on the right kind of looks like Ino's sword from Xenoblade 3, and then the first one, I'm not sure, just kind of looks like a junk sword with a star. But under that, the purple is just axes, and then the third ones, they look like ether arts. These yellow ones look like ether arts, and at least this one over here on the left kind of reminds me of Xenoblade X. I'm pretty sure there's an art in X with a similar looking design to that one. So, I mean, these look like these would just be Xenoblade X arts anyway, so that's pretty cool, kind of reminiscent of Xenoblade X. Next, we have an early Collectopedia icons, or like early collectible icons, kind of hinting at maybe there was going to be a Collectopedia. And even in the Treehouse Live gameplay of Xenoblade 2 way back before it released in 2017, we actually see in the menu there was a tab for a Collectopedia. So we were originally supposed to get a Collectopedia in Xenoblade 2. And I'm kind of surprised they didn't bring it back, at least for Torna, since they do kind of reuse a lot of cut stuff in the like DLC stories. But it would have been so cool to have a Collectopedia in Xenoblade 2. I would have dumped so much more time into 2 if there was a Collectopedia. And then next, we have some unused heart icons, possibly created for party member affinity, similar to Xenoblade 1. So this could very well be the same thing, since affinity does exist in Xenoblade 2, but in a very, very different format than it is in Xenoblade 1, where instead of having affinity between party members, same with Xenoblade X, we just have affinity between drivers and blades. So we were maybe going to have affinity like Xenoblade 1, and this is what the icons were going to look like. Here we have a collection of the character icons for each of the party members. Like when you go into the character tab in the main menu, these are their icons. And notably, Zeke and Morag are both unshaded. Not really too sure why. Everyone else looks relatively the same as base game, except Zeke and Morag are unshaded. And it kind of gives them like this hand-drawn type of look to it. I actually kind of like it, especially Morag. This one's interesting as it is early or like dummy blade art. We don't know exactly what character this is, but this could have possibly been a very, very early version of Pyra. It kind of looks like a mix between Pyra and Pandy. So perhaps we are going to get a blade that looked like this, and it was ultimately split up into Pyra and Pandy, or this is just some third unrelated blade. I don't know, but this looks like a very early version of Pyra, but this is just some dummy blade art. And speaking of more art, we have some art of Pyra in the Numa and Mithra color schemes. The name indicates that they were placeholders for the blade portraits that appear after awakening them. And similar to that first dummy blade art, we have some dummy driver art. Here again, this isn't a character we know of, but just like the blade art, this could be a very, very super early version of Rex, as it kind of has a similar design, I guess. It looks almost nothing like it, but you can see how this would turn out to be Rex. Here we have a bunch of character icons. Several of these icons use unfinished and or concept sheet images. The Poppy Alpha icon was used in an early build of the game shown during E3 2017, although oddly enough, the icon of Dromark in the same build used a cropped version of his official art like the final game, and not the unfinished one shown here. Interestingly, Poppy Cutie Pie has brown hair here, while in the final game the hair is purple along with the other Poppy models. And a lot of the art here, you can see that some of the art here is still hand drawn and hasn't really been converted into photo form, I guess. You can see a Gion, like a very primitive drawing, as well as Sever and Cosmos down there, and Cassandra right there, and we still got that Pyra image right here that I will go over later on. This one's very simple. It's just an image of Mithra taken from her character design sheet, and this image is used as a placeholder for Numa's character art. On the left here, you can see the early versions for the male and female Axe Common Blade, and on the right is their current version. Not too much has changed, just general, just refining of the art and kind of just making it more lively and colorful. As you can especially see with the axe, it's a lot more dull, and they just kind of brightened everything up and made it more colorful in like a life type of sense, not actual more color. And just like the last two, we have an early version of the Beast Blade. Again, just like with the other two, it was kind of just more saturated and given more color and light. Here is the Pyra image I was talking about. It's an image of Pyra wearing her Grammati disguise. It is likely her character portrait was meant to change during the brief period in chapter 2 where she disguises herself. So if you were to go into the menu, into the characters tab, her icon would have most likely changed this. And after that, we have art of Rex, just his normal art, but with a bonus unshaded Gramps in his helmet. So that's a nice touch. And then we also have a possibly early overlay for Common Blades on the blade list. Now, Common Blades and Rare Blades don't have any overlay for them. The only time an overlay is active is if you set a blade as your favorite and it has this kind of key overlay on it. So this would have probably been there to help distinguish between rare and common blades, or at least easier to see when you like glance at the screen or something. These next two are actually very interesting. First, we have what seems to be early core crystal icons. I don't like these. These look nasty. They look like actual core crystals than like the rhombuses we have now. I prefer what we have now to these, but it's kind of interesting to see that the core crystals would look like actual crystals, but maybe they realized that wasn't like unique or distinctive enough, so they changed it to what we have now, which I think looks so much better. But that's not as interesting as this next one here. This placeholder right here is kind of, and it's named speaker_0. So this is kind of hinting at that characters were probably supposed to have speaking icons similar to like traditional RPGs. So instead of just the speech bubbles over the heads of the characters that move along with the camera, or that move around with the dynamic camera, maybe they're going to have just like static text boxes on like the bottom of the screen with their character icon there, like traditional RPGs. That would have been very interesting to see. And what is this like dog furry thing in the placeholder? Normally you'd think it'd be like Rex or Pyra or Mithra or something like that, but it's just this weird dog thing that we haven't seen throughout the entire series. So we haven't seen this anywhere ever, so I'm curious as to why they chose this as a placeholder instead of like Rex or something to kind of test it out. But this could have just been scrapped early in development, since it isn't a character that we know. And then for some reason there's just this random blurry screenshot from Xenoblade X. Not really too sure why that's here. Here we have a placeholder or mock-up of the title screen. So it looks like the title screen for when you beat the game, I assume this is what it's going to look like. It looks a lot more like the key art for Xenoblade 2, where it shows Rex standing with Pyra's sword just overlooking Araya in the World Tree. So this looks a lot like the key art of Xenoblade 2, and maybe the title screen was going to be very similar to that, but they changed it. Same with Xenoblade 3. The title screen after beating the game and the key art are both different than they're both different. So this would have been really cool to see. I actually think I might have preferred this over the title screen we have now, where it has Pyramithra Rex and sometimes Nia looking at the world tree. I am kind of sad that Mithra is not here, but looking at the world tree with a riot in the background would have been a really cool title screen. And in here we just have some very basic versions of the Japanese and international logos for Xenoblade 2. The only difference is that the flames on the letters were removed, so it's just a lot more bolder text. This is more matching the 10th anniversary Xenoblade art, where the font Xenoblade is just whatever that font is without any like flair to it. So this is just that, but you know, they probably just thought it probably would have been better to just put the flames on there to kind of better match the theming of the game. And interestingly, we have an unused icons right here for each of the specials. And as you can see, there's a level 5 icon. So perhaps maybe we're going to be able to use a level 5 specials, go all the way up to level 5. That would have been scary, but maybe they thought that it would take way too long to get up to level 5. But they decided to scrap that and just go to level 4s, because 5 specials for every blade would be kind of a lot. There's like what, 57 rare blades or something like that, so they have to come up with 57 extra specials. That is a lot of space, because you have to make the animations, you have to do all the effects and everything for it. So that would take a lot, and not really too sure how that would change blade combos or anything like that. But level 5 specials would have been very scary. This next one, we just have an old drawing of Rex. Nothing too insane about this one. It's just a very early drawing of Rex. And it looks nice. It looks like it's just a mirrored version of his finalized art, where he's just facing the other way. But this next one is pretty cool. We have like a humorous image of a menu that has not been completed yet. So for anything that hasn't been completed, they'll just throw this Tatazo image on there. It says, sorry, under construction. I kind of like that one. This one's actually very cool and interesting, that I think was reused for Xenoblade 3. We have an unused icon for an enemy kill log. Note that this sort of feature is nowhere in the final game, though there was an encyclopedia function in early builds of the game, so it was likely meant to be used there. So the Collectopedia and what looks like to be an Enemypedia came back in Xenoblade 3. These could have been reused for Xenoblade 3 because allegedly that's an Enemypedia and the Collectopedia were both scrapped for Xenoblade 2, so they brought them back in Future Redeemed. So to think that Xenoblade 2 would have had a Collectopedia and Enemypedia, that would have been so dope. All right, so much more playtime and content you can squeeze out of that. Xenoblade 2 would have been like the definitive Xenoblade game at the time. And you know, it still is. Xenoblade 2 is my favorite. I think it's the best one. Maybe no, Xenoblade 3, like mechanically and fundamentally is a better game, but I still prefer Xenoblade 2 in almost every single aspect. This one kind of threw me off a little bit. We have 2 extremely early mock-ups from menus. All right, this looks so wildly different to what we have now. This kind of reminds me of Fire Emblem menus, especially Fates, with like the colors, at least the bright orange, like the muted orange and the red. This looks a lot like Fire Emblem menu icons or menu like screenshots, I guess. And if you look in the second image, if you look close, Rex is actually blonde here. I don't know if it's because of just how small the icon is, or if that's just a very, very light brown, but he looks blonde here. Maybe this was just for the menu, or perhaps Rex was supposed to have a different hair color early on, but Pyra looks relatively the same. But these two look very interesting. All right, there's multiple tabs, a lot of tabs here. You can see how many tabs there are. And this is just a very interesting look at the early versions of the menus. And it looks like the background of it looks like just wood. like, you know, like those wooden picnic tables you'd find out at parks and shit like that. It kind of looks like that. So these are very, very early placeholder like mock-ups of the menus. It's kind of cool to see. But yeah, that's it for this video. I know this one was kind of on the shorter side, I think. I don't know how long this video is, but there is a lot, and I mean a whole shit ton of unused and cut Xenoblade 2 content. So I'd have to split this up into multiple different videos. This was just a small, very small portion of it. This was all the unused graphics, and there's still some unused graphics I didn't go over because I didn't think they were like too interesting or relevant enough to go over. They're just a bunch of basic things, but there's a lot of cut content for this game, so I'm gonna be making multiple videos on that, but this was just the first one. I'm excited to get into it because there is a lot of interesting stuff, and this was just the surface of it. But yeah, that's really about it. So see you next mission and play some goddamn Xenoblade.